I'm tired from that last list, but screw it. We're gonna do the last one because this is the last list for the year. So let's just do it. What's up, everyone? Here it is, the 35 albums I loved in 2018. Again, this isn't really a definitive best list because most of these albums really can interchange. In fact, if you read my reviews on my blog, there are some albums on this list that I have no least favorite tracks on that are lower than albums I do have least favorite tracks on. That doesn't mean that the album was actually worse. It just means that this list is mostly ordered in terms of how much I've returned to these albums, or how much they personally affected me during the year. So it's not really a definitive best list. There are going to be some albums here that have been universally loved that might be a little lower. This is just in terms of how much I've returned to them for the most part. So here we go, 35 albums I loved in 2018. Some people might hate some of these picks, but screw it, let's go. Number 35, this was an album that was requested for me to listen to, and I did enjoy it a lot. The latest Borns album, Blue Madonna. Super slick psychedelic production that features Borns in top form as a vocalist, as a performer. It's not one that I've gone back to a ton, but I did really enjoy what I listened to, and I thought that it was really solid. I think he's got a lot of range, and I really dig it. At number 34, we have Teyana Taylor with KTSE, Keep the Same Energy, Keep That Same Energy. Super loving album from an artist with a huge appreciation for R&B. I think she has some very emotional vocals throughout this thing. Kanye's sample hunting production is strong just as usual, and I hope people continue to give her a chance with this album and with future albums, because I think that she's going to be a pretty solid growing voice in R&B if she gets the chance. At number 33, this one has been getting a lot of love recently, and it would have been higher if I'd spent a little more time listening to it, but of course I had to give a shout out to JID, J-I-D, whatever it is, with DiCaprio 2. I love JID's performances throughout this thing. He's got some great charisma, solid production as you would expect, and his lyrical abilities and flows are super solid all throughout this album. Again, it would have been higher if I wasn't in a rush to get these reviews out, that I only was able to listen to it a couple times, but I loved what I listened to. Number 32, we have Judas Priest with Firepower. Who says metal's dead? This is an album that even as someone that doesn't really listen to metal music, I can really get into it because there's so much great energy. The instrumentation on this thing is so beautiful, and the vocal performances are just so energetic. It's super amazing metal music that even if you're not a fan of it, you'll love it. It's not just, oh, shouting at the devil, blah, 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 blah. It's really enticing. It's awesome. At number 31, one of the few like super long albums that I loved this year, we have Lil Wayne with possibly the most anticipated album of the 2010s, The Carter 5. C5 finally came out, and I'm actually glad I really enjoyed it. I was a little nervous about it, but I think that Wayne as a performer is in top form throughout this album with some slick flows, solid lyricism, and some really great production, and some really, really strong features too. Kendrick is here, XXXTentacion in that feature was pretty good, Travis Scott. You got some good ones, and Swizz Beatz helped him make Uproar, and that was amazing too. At number 30, we have Nas with his latest album, Nasir. I really dig a lot of the lyricism on here. I think that Nas, of course, is a lyrical genius, and the fact that he tied this album to the 7 Deadly Sins was super awesome and super clever. And the fact that his performances are good and the production is solid, that doesn't hurt either. Really enjoyed this one. At number 29, we have The Carters with Everything Is Love. It's pretty much everything that a Hove and Beyonce fan could really want out of a joint album between the two. I think that Beyonce and Jay-Z both sound amazing all throughout this album. The production is strong, and I think it's great because even as an album that's about flexing and celebrating the success that they've had, it takes the time to be human, and it takes the time to be personal and remind us of why these two are such a strong power couple and how they've worked through their difficulties. So I really dig that. Number 28, we have Troye Sivan with Bloom. I think that Troye Sivan creates an album that is pretty much an amazing anthem to queer love, unapologetic queer love. He handles these mature themes so well with such charismatic vocals and really solid production, crafting what might be one of the better pop albums this year. At number 27, we have Vince Staples with FM. Even with its very short length, I think that Vince has great flows, a ton of charisma. He just has so much fun all throughout this record. I mean, there is a song called Fun on there, so I would hope he does. He has a lot of fun with his performances. The production is equally enticing, and I think that it's, again, one album that could have been even higher if I spent a little more time with it, but nonetheless, way to go, Vince. I love it. At number 26, we have J. Cole with KOD, an album that, of course, has some good production. The songs themselves sound great, but I think what really sells the album for me is J. Cole himself. He's an interesting performer, great lyricist, he's got a lot of really good flows, and he comes through with a lot of really memorable tracks here. Obviously KOD, ATM, Kevin's Heart, 1985, The Fall Off. He comes through with a lot here that's just really easy to enjoy. At number 25, the real Slim Shady has stood up, Eminem's Kamikaze. The bounce back of the century, it's nice to see him just going and spitting lyrical with hard rapid fire flows, some great features throughout this thing, and much better production than what we got off of Revival. Of course, there are some songs that I don't love on this thing, like Venom, but otherwise, this is an album that really shows us that Eminem still has it. At number 24, we have Brockhampton with their label debut album, Iridescence. The boys are back, the new era is off to a hot start, the production is still cutting edge and exciting, all the boys come through with great vocal performances and lyricism throughout this thing, and I think what's really fascinating is that there's a few more songs on this album that only feature one or two members, so I think I like that because, you know, they have always worked well as a team, of course, the trilogy and everything like that is a team effort, but it's nice to see that they take the time to be a little more personal and a little more down by just featuring a few guys. Also, this is just me, but there's a lot more Bareface on this album. Always a plus. At number 23, bet you guys didn't see this one coming, it's the latest Neo album, Good Man. Neo, I think, really stepped into this new generation of sound pretty solidly. Some really great electro songs here, even a mix of some dancehall too that sounds really nice. Neo's vocals are still top notch, and he really sells a lot of these songs with those alone. It's a great compromise between his old R&B sound that made him popular and some new electro production that really works for him. At number 22, we have the latest 21 Pilots album, Trench. Beyond having a really great concept and storyline to tell throughout the album with the story of Dima, I think that this album really works because the production is so enticing and so fun, the vocal performances are charismatic and catchy, and it's an album that works as well on its own as it does as a story and a statement. I've never really been super big into 21 Pilots music, but this album sold me. At number 21, we have Poppy with Am I a Girl? I think that Poppy's sound has matured so much even in just 1 year, and as much as I love Poppy Computer, I think she comes through with even more heavy and exciting bangers throughout this album. The fact that she also goes nu metal throughout it, that's pretty dope. At number 20, we have Ariana Grande with her latest album, Sweetener. Easily her most experimental and different album to date. Maybe experimental is not the right word to use. Unconventional, that's better. This is an album that I loved. I think it still features her sounding amazing. This new production is really solid. There's a lot of super catchy hooks on here, and I think she just once again establishes to me why she's one of the best pop stars in the game. At number 19, we have Panic at the Disco with Pray for the Wicked. This is probably going to be a controversial pick because some people hated this album just as some people loved it. But I think that Brendan Urie's turn to Broadway sound was actually really captivating here, and I thought that it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of great energy here. His vocal performances are great. There's a lot of catchy hooks, and it's just a really fun album. I don't know what it is, but I just love that. At number 18, we have Little Mix with their latest album, LM5. As my first experience with the group, God, these girls can sing. Wow, their harmonizing is amazing throughout this record, and they also have a little more punch than the typical girl group. Not just in terms of their lyrical topics, but really in terms of their production as well. There's so much that they come through with here that's just crazy. I really didn't expect it, but I love it. At number 17, we have the debut self-titled album from Miss Ella Mai. Ella Mai, I think, is an artist that might just be the new queen of throwback R&B. And again, she's another artist that I think is great at selling songs with her vocals alone, but what really separates this from like her last EP, which I thought was just okay, is that DJ Mustard's production is a lot more compelling here and just a lot more fun to listen to, and it really plays to Ella's strengths a lot better. So overall, I really love this thing. At number 16, we have Mike Shinoda with Post Traumatic. Obviously, it's no secret that Chester Bennington's passing really affected Mike Shinoda, and it's obviously a very touching, personal, and very sad album in how it deals with Mike's reaction to Chester's passing, but it also stands alone super well because of its very dark, emotional vibe, Mike's great lyricism, and very solid vocal performances. So I really love this thing. At number 15, this is another one that might be a controversial pick because I don't think anyone else would put it on their list, but again, this is one that I just gone back to quite a bit. We have BB Rexa with Expectations. A lot of really interesting crossovers in terms of genres here, most of which stick the landing. I think that her vocals are really compelling, and a lot of her songwriting actually translates pretty solidly throughout this album. I was really surprised. I thought this would just be an album that I'd be one and done with, but I actually really enjoy it. At number 14, we have Logic with Bobby Tarantino 2, the mixtape. Again, I'll specify if there's a mixtape or EP on here. But Bobby Tarantino 2 was just a lot of fun. I love the way that he displayed his rap talents on here. Obviously, his technicalities and his flows are really great. The return to the braggadocious feel is welcome after Everybody. And And I think that the production gives Logic a lot of room to run around and be creative and have fun here. There's a lot of really compelling tracks and I just love it. At number 13, we have Travis Scott with Astroworld. A nice bounce back because after Birds in the Trap, I wasn't sure if Travis would actually bounce back with this thing, but I think that this played better to his style. It had a lot more compelling beat switches, better, more hazy production, and it kind of just felt more enjoyable and more easy to focus on than Birds in the Trap. Birds in the Trap to me felt like Travis selling himself short. Astroworld was a perfect bounce back. It was a bounce back to the style that Travis showed on Rodeo that was so successful. At number 12, we have a movie soundtrack. We have Kendrick Lamar and various artists with Black Panther the album. This is an album that even without the context of the film stands alone so well because there's so many really well put together tracks, great vocal performances and rap flows from a huge list of artists. And I think what just really makes the album so great is that it's a celebration of Black excellence and it's an album that's unapologetically African and all the better for it. So huge shout outs to Kendrick, Top Dog Entertainment, and everyone involved for making this such a great album. Number 11, I think people are gonna hate me for putting this high because he doesn't deserve to get more success than he has this year, but screw it. Drake, Scorpion. Yes, I enjoyed Scorpion this much. I thought that it actually was a nice blend of his two styles. Side A was a blend of the best bits from Nothing Was the Same and If You're Reading This It's Too Late, and side B was a nice mix between the Take Care and Thank Me Later Drake. So I really felt like it was nice in that it was a good, solid bounce back to his old style after Views and More Life started going into this weird dance hall kind of vibe. I do kind of wish it had a little more New Orleans bounce to it, because nice for what was so good. Oh well. At number 10, another pick that might be surprising. Actually, most of my top 10 might be surprising. We have Kyle with Light of Mine. This is just a really fun-loving rap album. I just think it's so happy and so positive, and it's an album that just gets me in a good mood. You know, I like Kyle's performances. I think he's got a really sunny, happy vibe, and his production really plays to that as well. So I really dig it. I really dig what's going on here, and I hope that Kyle keeps putting out good stuff, because everyone's saying that he fell off after being an XXL freshman, and yeah, he hasn't had a chart hit since, but I hope the public opens up to him and really listens to what he's going for in this album, because I think it's good. At number 9, we have Charlie Puth with Voice Notes. Yeah, I think this is way more compelling than 9 Track Minds. It's a nice piece of throwback funk and R&B that feels like it appreciates the old school sound a lot, and it's nice to see that Charlie is actually making the music he wants to make now, instead of just making One Call Away again, or making another See You Again, or blah blah blah. And his vocals are really solid here too. Gotta give him that. At number 8, we have the self-titled album from Shawn Mendes. Shawn really takes some interesting risks lyrically, and while it's not quite as intensely personal as some reviewers made it out to be, I think it's his most compelling in terms of the production, in terms of the instrumentals. His vocals are great. He's got an ear for great hooks. I think it's easily the best album that he's put out to date. At number 7, we have Cardi B with Invasion of Privacy. I mean, for this thing, all Cardi really had to do was keep finding good production, keep the same energy she's always had, bring some clever bars, and not try to make 12 or 13 more versions of Bodak Yellow. I think she stuck the landing on that. A lot of really fun tracks on this thing. I'd make the Okurt noise, but I can't roll my tongue and my throat also hurts. At number 6, I'm sure this album is going to be super high on a lot of lists, we have Janelle Monáe with Dirty Computer. This is an album that has a lot more punch than the typical pop album. It's not the most conventional pop album in the world, but it's great for it. Janelle sounds great singing on it, rapping on it. She just has so much fun throughout this thing, and I think it's very forward thinking. It handles a lot of really difficult topics and a lot of topics that are big in the world around us, but it handles them so brilliantly. At number 5, I feel like people are going to call me basic for having this way high up here, but I really loved Post Malone's latest album, Beer Bongs and Bentleys. Stoney to me was just a little too boring and too empty spacey, and I was just kind of like falling asleep during it. But with this, it really felt like he upped the production, he kept his vocals really clean, and he came through with a lot of songs that were just easier to turn up to, easier to get excited about, easier to vibe to. I think there's a lot of emotional tracks, a lot of fun tracks, and it's just an album that I've consistently come back to. I really, really enjoy it. At number 4, we have Miss Camila Cabello with her debut album, Camila. I think this album showed us a new side of Camila that we weren't really used to, a more emotional side, and I think her vocals are consistently great throughout this thing. There's a lot of really compelling production. Even on super light songs, they're really great to vibe to, and I think this album really helped me out because, again, as someone that battled with a lot of anxiety this year, I felt like it was music that really just kind of worked for my mood throughout the year. So I really dig it, and I really love what she went for here. At number 3, we have an EP, and it's The Weeknd with My Dear Melancholy. I talked about this in one of my previous videos, but But what really made this EP so compelling for me is that I know a lot of the fans of his have wanted him to go back to his older sound, and I think he did that while also having a bit of the pop appeal that made Beauty Behind the Madness and Starboy get people like me into his music, and it also showed the vocal maturity that he's had since then. Admittedly, with the trilogy, yeah, the trilogy is good, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not gonna mince words. There are points throughout the trilogy where he just kind of sounds very whiny. I think he's had a lot of vocal maturity since the trilogy, and it shows here, but it's nice to see him go back to the dark sound of the trilogy, and I think it just meshes well so perfectly. At number 2, we have Alessia Cara with The Pains of Growing, an album that broke me in about 15 different ways. Obviously, she sounds great on it, and it's got a little more punch and a little bit more different production that doesn't make it a standard pop album, but I think what really helps it for me is that I know a lot of people talk about relatability when it comes to music, and maybe critics shouldn't be talking about relatability, but again, I felt like while listening to this album, I really felt myself relating to pretty much everything she was talking about on here. It's a really raw album, and it's one that really, really works. It's super genuine, it's lovely, it's a great listen. I had a lot of fun with it. And, I mean, you could probably guess the number 1 pick because I'm wearing the shirt, so obviously it's Denzel Curry's Taboo. I kind of wish that this album had a little more chart success this year, especially given how many SoundCloud rappers were having chart success this year, but I'm glad to see that Denzel is getting more noticed, especially by me because this was honestly my first real experience with Denzel's music, and I love it. I think it's super dark and brooding. Denzel's performances are super in your face and super duper charismatic. He sounds amazing throughout a lot of these songs, and he handles a lot of super difficult topics and does so well with them. It's a lot of really hard-hitting music, and it's stuff that just is easy to keep coming back to. It's got a lot more punch than a lot of what you'd expect out of rap music today, and given that he's someone that is kind of associated with some of these SoundCloud rappers today, it's a perfect case of don't judge a book by its cover, because just because he's associated with them, that doesn't mean that he's making the same kind of music they are. He's on a whole nother level, and he's probably one of the best that's out there right now. If you haven't listened to this album yet, do it. Oh, thank God. Let me tell you guys something real quick. I did not expect that doing those lists would make my throat hurt so much, but that was a lot. Note to self, never record 3 of these videos in the same day ever again. In any case, what were your favorite albums, EPs, mixtapes, whatever this year? Sound off in the comments below. Let's keep it civil. Let's have some fun. If you want to hit like and subscribe, go ahead. If not, that's fine. And I'm gonna go relax now. I think I hear Smash Ultimate calling my name, so I'm gonna go play. I don't even think I'm gonna edit these videos right away just because I'm lazy. In any case, thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you whenever it's time to start reacting to and reviewing new albums. And yeah, peace out.